Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to dive into one of the most surprising developments happening in the cryptocurrency world right now, something that could reshape how people view both blockchain adoption and payment systems. Most investors out there are paying attention to meme tokens, chasing hype coins, or complaining about Ethereum's expensive gas fees. But behind the noise, something much more important is quietly unfolding. And if you've never heard of Caspa before, you're about to. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always do your own research before investing in crypto. Because here's the news. Businesses in Miami are now accepting Caspa as payment. Not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, Caspa. And that single development could be the early signal that institutional adoption is brewing. Remember what happened when Tesla announced it would accept Bitcoin? The entire market exploded. History might not repeat itself exactly, but it often rhymes, and this looks like one of those moments. Now, here's the kicker. Analysts and community leaders are asking whether Caspa could reach $10 by 2030. For context, right now Caspa is trading at just around $0.08 as of September 5th. At first glance, $10 might sound like a fantasy. But when you dig into the numbers, look at the blockchain technology, and measure adoption trends, the argument suddenly looks much more convincing. When Mitchell Lim dropped the announcement on Twitter that Miami businesses had started accepting Caspa, the crypto community paid attention. Why? Because real-world adoption is the #1 catalyst for institutional money to follow. It's one thing for retail investors to speculate on tokens. It's another when businesses begin taking those tokens for actual goods and services. That transforms speculation into utility. We've seen this before. When Tesla and a handful of companies announced Bitcoin acceptance, the market didn't just cheer, it skyrocketed. That was the proof point investors needed to believe Bitcoin could be more than just a niche experiment. Now Caspa is in that exact position. Except the stakes might be even higher because of its unique technological foundation. Right now, Caspa trades at about $0.08171. A move to $10 would mean a 12,130% increase. That sounds ridiculous, right? But let's not forget what Bitcoin achieved. It started at just $0.08 and eventually hit nearly $69K at its peak. That's an 86,250,000% gain. Ethereum was laughed at when it traded at $10, and now it's a core pillar of the crypto ecosystem with a market cap in the hundreds of billions. So suddenly, the question of Caspa reaching $10 doesn't seem insane at all. In fact, compared to Bitcoin's historical trajectory, it looks modest. The real question becomes, what makes Caspa special enough to deserve that kind of growth? Most investors think they understand Bitcoin. They call it digital gold, a hedge against inflation, or a store of value. And while those descriptions are partially correct, they miss the deeper purpose laid out in Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper. Bitcoin was never meant to just sit in wallets as a digital reserve. It was meant to function as peer-to-peer electronic cash, fast, secure, and decentralized money for everyday use. Here's where Caspa comes in. It delivers on that exact vision while solving the core issues that Bitcoin and Ethereum have struggled with for years. Bitcoin still processes only 7 transactions per second. Ethereum gave up on proof of work and moved to proof of stake, introducing centralization risks and concentration of wealth. Caspa, by contrast, uses blockDAG architecture that allows transactions to confirm in under a second with negligible fees. And the best part? Caspa managed to do this while keeping decentralization intact. No pre-mine, no venture capital favoritism, no backroom deals. Just a fair launch with proof-of-work mechanics at its core. In other words, it cracked the so-called blockchain trilemma: scalability, security, and decentralization, all at once. That's why some in the crypto community call Caspa not just an innovation, but a revolution. Accordion to chart the price action tells an equally compelling story. As of September 5th, Caspa is holding around $0.8171. That's above a critical support level between $0.08 to $0.082. Daily trading volume sits at roughly $102 million. Not earth-shattering, but strong enough to show active participation. Meanwhile, long positions have dropped into negative territory and short interest is hovering near $1.2 billion. Translation? Bears control short-term momentum. But here's the catch. Nobody's panicking. This doesn't look like capitulation. It looks like consolidation. Smart money accumulates during boring sideways action, while retail money usually chases the flashy green candles. The chart itself is forming a bear flag pattern with lower highs and lower lows since the 20-cent peak. Technical analysis suggests we could see a bounce back toward $0.10 resistance or a breakdown toward the $0.055 support zone. Either way, the setup is coiling for a big move. Now let's talk valuations, because this is where things get interesting. At today's price, Caspa's market cap is roughly $2 billion. If the token were to hit $10, we'd be looking at around $240 billion in valuation. That sounds huge until you compare it with Bitcoin's $1.3 trillion peak or Ethereum's $550 billion peak. What makes this gap absurd is that meme coins with no technological foundation, coins literally created as jokes, command billion-dollar valuations, while Caspa quietly builds the infrastructure for decentralized payments at scale. This disconnect between utility and market recognition won't last forever. Eventually, markets reward real innovation. Beyond charts and numbers, the big picture is crystal clear. Proof-of-work mining is seeing more regulatory clarity worldwide. Mining infrastructure is expanding, particularly in energy-friendly regions, and payment integration is beginning to snowball. When one Miami business accepts Caspa, customers notice. Then payment processors add support. Then more businesses follow. That's how network effects begin. And don't forget what happens when institutions start sniffing around. If companies like BlackRock begin exploring Caspa ETFs, or if MicroStrategy adds it to their treasury, or if a nation-state like El Salvador decides to recognize it as legal tender, you won't want to look back wishing you had acted earlier. Of course, nothing in crypto is guaranteed. Volatility is the price of admission. Caspa could revisit $0.055 before attempting another breakout. It could consolidate for months. That's why risk management is critical. Dollar cost averaging rather than trying to perfectly time entries makes far more sense for most investors. But here's the thing. Crypto history shows that patient capital always wins. Bitcoin took over 15 years to reach mainstream legitimacy. Caspa only launched in 2022. If its technology delivers as promised, long-term holders might reap rewards that short-term traders can't even imagine. Revolutionary technology requires revolutionary patience. By the time certainty arrives, the outsized gains are already gone. Right now, Caspa represents maximum uncertainty paired with maximum potential. So let's wrap this up. Businesses in Miami are now accepting Caspa payments, marking a major real-world adoption milestone. Caspa solves Bitcoin's scalability problem with blockDAG architecture, sub-second transaction speeds, and ultra-low fees, all without sacrificing decentralization. Current price action shows consolidation above key support at $0.08, with resistance at $0.10, and potential downside support at $0.055. Valuation disconnect is clear. Meme coins dominate billions in market cap, while Caspa quietly delivers true utility. Institutional money and regulation are aligning for proof-of-work systems, setting the stage for broader acceptance. And finally, the long-term question. Could Caspa really hit $10 by 2030? The math says it's possible. The technology says it's justified. The only variable left is adoption. At the end of the day, you have to decide. Will you be part of the crowd that waits for certainty, or will you position yourself before the rest of the world catches on? Because this moment, this price, and this technology could be the foundation of something massive. Thanks for watching. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit subscribe if you want more real-time updates, moves, market trends, and hidden gems.